The angel's body slammed into the concrete with such force that the pavement cracked beneath him like a frozen lake surrendering to spring. Gabriel didn't scream. Angels never scream, but the impact drove every molecule of divine memory from his consciousness like light fleeing from darkness. His eyes snapped open to cold rain, flickering streetlights, and the acrid smell of garbage rotting in the alley where heaven had thrown him. Blood seeped from a gash on his forehead, except it wasn't blood. It was luminescent gold that faded into his skin as if his body was absorbing the evidence of divinity itself. He gasped for air he didn't need and tried to stand on legs that barely remembered how to hold weight. His mind was empty, a white void where memories should have lived. He touched his face with trembling hands, searching for some anchor to identity, finding nothing. Not his name, not his purpose, not even the basic architecture of self that makes a consciousness recognizable to itself. A siren wailed somewhere in the distance. Gabriel's head snapped toward the sound, and his body moved on instincts older than conscious thought. He stumbled deeper into the alley, away from the street, away from lights and questions, pressing himself against a brick wall slick with December rain. His clothes, a simple white shirt and dark pants, were torn and filthy, offering no clues to who he was or where he'd come from. That's when he noticed the paper clutched in his right hand. Soaked but legible, the words written there in elegant script seemed to burn into his vision. Emma Martinez. St. Luke's Hospital. Room 304. She dies at midnight, unless you remember. Below that, a date and time. December 24th, 11:59 p.m. And at the bottom, circled 3 times in red ink, 6 hours remaining. Gabriel stared at the paper, his heart, or whatever angels had instead of hearts, pounding with inexplicable urgency. He didn't know who Emma Martinez was. Didn't know why her name was in his hand, or why the thought of her dying made his chest tighten with anguish. But something deeper than memory, something woven into the fabric of his existence, told him this mattered. This was everything. A church bell tolled. 6 deep notes echoing across the city. 6 o'clock on Christmas Eve. Gabriel looked at the paper again. Midnight. He had 6 hours to save a child he didn't remember, in a city he didn't recognize, while trapped in a body that felt simultaneously familiar and alien. He stepped out onto the sidewalk where Christmas shoppers flowed past like a river that refused to acknowledge stones in its current. Colored lights blinked from every storefront. Christmas carols played from hidden speakers, and the smell of roasted chestnuts mixed with exhaust fumes and rain. Nobody looked at him. Nobody seemed to notice the tall, rain-soaked figure with wild eyes and hands that occasionally flickered with impossible light. "Please," Gabriel called out to the passing crowd, his voice too loud, too resonant, like it was designed to carry across distances measured in light years instead of feet. "Please, I need help. I need to find St. Luke's Hospital." People flowed around him without responding. A few glanced his way with expressions that mixed pity and fear, the look reserved for the homeless, the addicted, the broken. Gabriel grabbed a man's arm in desperation. "Please, a child is dying. I have to." The man jerked away. "Get your hands off me." He hurried off, clutching his shopping bags like they contained treasures too precious to risk near whatever madness Gabriel represented. Footsteps approached from behind. "You lost, brother." Gabriel turned to see a homeless man emerge from the shadows of a doorway. He was old, weathered by decades of survival on streets that showed no mercy, wrapped in layers of newspapers and cardboard against the December cold. But his eyes were sharp, alert, and they widened when they met Gabriel's. Those eyes. I ain't seen eyes like that since. He stopped, took a step back. "What are you?" "I don't know," Gabriel whispered, and the admission felt like a stone dropped into a bottomless well. "I don't know what I am or who I am. I just know I have to find St. Luke's Hospital before midnight. A girl named Emma Martinez. She's in room 304. She's going to die if I don't." The homeless man was shaking his head. "St. Luke's is 6 blocks that way." "But brother, you got bigger problems than navigation. Your hands are glowing." Gabriel looked down. Gold light was seeping from his palms like liquid sunrise, illuminating the rain-soaked sidewalk. He shoved his hands in his pockets, but the light leaked through the fabric. "What's happening to me?" "You're remembering," the old man said quietly. "Whatever you were before you fell, it's trying to come back. I've seen it once before, 40 years ago. Angel crashed in this same alley on Christmas Eve. Saved my baby sister from fire before he remembered he wasn't supposed to be on Earth at all. Disappeared in a flash of light right after." He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Listen to me careful. You got 6 hours. That means heaven gave you a deadline. You miss it, and whatever you came to do stays undone. Forever." Gabriel's legs gave out. He slid down the wall to the wet pavement, the paper still clutched in his hand. "I can't remember. I don't know what I'm supposed to do." "Then you better start figuring it out," the homeless man said, not unkindly. "Because in my experience, angels don't fall without a damn good reason." Before we continue this journey together, I want to pause for just a moment. If you're watching from anywhere in the world tonight, drop a comment below and tell me what country you're streaming from. Are you watching from the United States? The Philippines? Nigeria? The UK? India? Brazil? Let me know. I love seeing how far God's stories travel on Christmas Eve. And if this story is already gripping your heart, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you're going to want to see how this ends. Now, let's get back to Gabriel's desperate race against time. Gabriel forced himself to stand. The homeless man was right. 6 hours wasn't much, but it was something. He started walking in the direction the old man had pointed, his feet carrying him through crowds that parted around him like he was surrounded by an invisible force field. The paper was getting more soaked with each passing minute, the ink beginning to run, but he didn't dare put it away. It was the only clue he had. He made it 2 blocks before the first memory hit. Not a full memory, just a flash, a fragment. Wings. Massive wings that caught starlight and reflected it in colors that didn't exist in the human spectrum. A voice, deep, authoritative, infinite, speaking a name, Gabriel. And then falling through layers of reality, like passing through curtains made of light and time and space. Gabriel stumbled, caught himself against a lamppost. "Gabriel," he whispered. "My name is Gabriel." It wasn't much, but it was something, a foundation to build on. He was Gabriel. He was an angel. He had fallen, and he had 6 hours to save Emma Martinez. The question was, how? He reached St. Luke's Hospital at 7:15. The building loomed above him, 12 stories of brick and glass decorated with Christmas lights that seemed to mock the urgency pounding through his veins. The main entrance was crowded with visitors carrying flowers and balloons, nurses coming off shift, doctors grabbing coffee before the night shift began. Gabriel pushed through the revolving door and stopped in the lobby, overwhelmed by fluorescent lights and the antiseptic smell of industrial cleaning products mixed with human suffering. A directory on the wall listed departments and room numbers, but his eyes blurred when he tried to read it. His hands were shaking again, the gold light flickering beneath his skin like a candle flame fighting wind. "Can I help you?" A security guard stepped into his path. Middle-aged, overweight, but with kind eyes that suggested he remembered what compassion looked like. "Sir, are you all right? You look like you've been in an accident." "Room 304, Gabriel said. "I need to get to room 304. Emma Martinez." "Geez, I have to. Are you family?" The guard's expression shifted from concern to professional caution. "I'll need to see some ID." Gabriel's pockets were empty except for the soggy paper. "I don't have ID. I don't have anything. But please, she's dying. She needs me." "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The guard's hand moved to the radio, clipped to his belt. "If you're not family and you don't have clearance." "She prayed for me." The words burst out of Gabriel before he knew he was going to say them. And the moment they left his lips, he knew they were true. Emma Martinez had prayed. Prayed desperately. Prayed with the kind of faith that reached through layers of reality and grabbed heaven by the throat. And heaven had sent him. She prayed for an angel, and I came. I fell. I fell through time and space, and I lost everything. My memory, my purpose, my understanding, but I'm here because she prayed. And if I don't reach her before midnight, she dies. The guard stared at him with an expression that mixed pity and discomfort. "Sir, I think you need medical attention. Let me call someone from psych too." Gabriel ran. He didn't think about it, didn't plan it, just moved with that same impossible grace that seemed hardwired into his body despite his amnesia. He was past the guard and at the elevator bank before the man could react, jamming his finger against the up button with desperate intensity. "Stop!" The guard's radio crackled to life. "Security, we have a situation in the main lobby." White male, 6 feet tall, acting erratically, heading for the elevators. The elevator doors opened. Gabriel threw himself inside and hit the button for the 3rd floor. The doors slid shut just as the guard reached them, cutting off his shouts mid-sentence. Gabriel leaned against the elevator wall, gasping, his reflection in the polished doors showing a man who looked more like a vagrant than an angel of God. The elevator climbed. 2nd floor. 3rd floor. The doors opened onto a corridor painted in cheerful pastels, decorated with paper snowflakes and a slightly crooked banner reading, "Happy Holidays from St. Luke's Pediatric Unit." Gabriel's stomach dropped. Pediatric unit. Emma Martinez wasn't just dying. She was a child. Room 301. Room 302. Room 303. Gabriel's steps slowed as he approached room 304. The door was partially open, revealing a slice of the room beyond. Monitors beeped, for bags hung from metal stands. And in the bed, small and still beneath white sheets, lay a little girl with a bald head and skin so pale it was almost translucent. Emma Martinez, 8 years old, according to the chart clipped to her door. Diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia 6 months ago. Multiple rounds of chemotherapy. Bone marrow transplant failed. Status, terminal. Estimated time remaining, hours. Gabriel's hand was on the door when a voice behind him said, "Are you the angel?" He turned to find a nurse standing there. Young, exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes and a name tag that read Maria. She wasn't reaching for a phone or calling security. She was just watching him with an expression that mixed hope and skepticism in equal measure. "I'm not sure what I am," Gabriel admitted. "Emma's been asking for 3 days if the angels heard her prayer," Maria said quietly. "Ever since we told her there's nothing more we can do medically. She stopped eating, stopped talking to her parents, just lies there asking if anyone's coming." She stepped closer, studying Gabriel's face. "I don't know what you are or how you got past security looking like you crawled out of a dumpster. But if you can give that little girl 1 hour of hope on Christmas Eve, I'm not going to stop you." Gabriel nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He pushed open the door and stepped into Emma Martinez's room. The little girl's eyes were open, staring at the ceiling with the expression of someone who'd already left this world in every way except the final, physical departure. But when she heard the door, she turned her head, and her eyes, bright green despite the gray pallor of her skin, locked onto Gabriel with an intensity that made him stagger. "You came," she whispered. "I prayed and nobody believed me, but you came." Gabriel crossed to her bedside and knelt so their eyes were level. "I came. But Emma, I need your help. I fell and I hit my head, and I can't remember why I'm here or what I'm supposed to do. Can you help me remember?" To his surprise, Emma smiled. It was a tiny, fragile thing, but genuine. "Angels forget sometimes. That's what my grandma said before she died. She said angels forget they're angels when they come to Earth because Earth is so heavy it pushes the memory out. But it comes back. You just have to remember what love feels like." "What love feels like," Gabriel repeated, the words resonating in his chest like struck bells. "I prayed for an angel to come tell me if my grandma made it to heaven," Emma said. Her voice was getting stronger now, fed by hope Gabriel didn't feel. "The doctors say I'm dying. My parents cry all the time. Everyone looks at me like I'm already gone. But I need to know if grandma's okay. If heaven is real. If dying is as scary as it feels." Gabriel's hands were glowing again, brighter now, the gold light spilling out to touch Emma's pale hand where it rested on the white sheets. The moment their skin connected, memory hit him like a tsunami. Not all of it, not even most of it, but enough. He remembered standing before the throne of God. Remembered the voice that shook galaxies speaking his name. "Gabriel." Emma Martinez is dying. She's 8 years old. She has prayed every night for 3 weeks, asking if her grandmother made it safely to heaven. Her faith is hanging by a thread. If that thread breaks before she dies, she will die in despair. And despair closes the door to eternity. You will go to her. You will tell her the truth. But you will not remember easily, Gabriel. This message must be born from your own journey, not simply delivered like mail. You will fall. You will forget. And you will have until midnight to remember what matters most. The memory faded, leaving Gabriel gasping. Emma was staring at him, her green eyes wide. "You're glowing," she whispered. "Like Grandma," said Angel's glow. "Your grandmother," Gabriel said, his voice rough with emotion. "Catherine Martinez. She died 3 months ago." Emma's eyes filled with tears. Is she in heaven? Did she make it? Was she good enough? And there it was. The question, the fear, the doubt that poisoned faith and closed doors to eternity. Gabriel understood now why God had sent him broken and confused. Because Emma didn't need a polished angel with perfect answers. She needed someone who understood what it felt like to be lost, afraid, and desperate for hope. "Emma, listen to me carefully," Gabriel said, gripping her small hand with both of his. "Your grandmother didn't make it to heaven because she was good enough. Nobody's good enough. Heaven isn't a prize you earn by being perfect. It's a gift you receive by believing in the one who is perfect for you. Jesus, Emma vispirit. Jesus, Gabriel confirmed. Your grandmother believed. I know because I've seen her. She's there, Emma. She's whole and healthy, and she's been praying for you, just like you've been praying for her. The connection doesn't break just because someone dies. Love doesn't break. Do you understand?" Emma nodded, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "But I'm dying too. I'm dying and I'm scared and it hurts and—" "I know," Gabriel said. And he did know, because his time on earth had taught him things angels never learn in heaven. Pain, confusion, the weight of flesh and time and mortality. "I know it's scary. But Emma, dying isn't the end. It's just passing through a door. And your grandmother is waiting on the other side." "How do you know?" Emma's voice was barely audible. "How do you know I'll make it to?" Gabriel thought about the last 6 hours. About falling and forgetting and stumbling through streets filled with people who couldn't see him for what he was. About the homeless man who recognized divinity despite its disguise. About Maria, the nurse, who chose hope over protocol. About Emma herself, dying but still reaching toward heaven with trembling faith. "Because you believe enough to pray," Gabriel said simply. "Because even in the darkest moment, you reach toward the light. That's all heaven needs, Emma. Not perfection, just reaching." The monitors attached to Emma's chest began to beat more rapidly. Her breathing was shallow, labored. Maria appeared in the doorway, her face stricken. "She's crashing. I need to get the doctor." "Wait," Emma gasped. She was looking at Gabriel with an expression of wonder. "You're glowing so bright, I can barely see you. Are you going back?" Gabriel looked down at his hands. The gold light was no longer flickering. It was blazing, so intense that it hurt to look at directly. His body was becoming transparent, fading, as if reality was finally remembering he didn't belong here. "I have to go," he said, his voice breaking. "But Emma, you're going to be okay. I promise. Your grandmother is waiting. Jesus is waiting, and they're going to welcome you home. Will I see you there?" Emma's eyes were drifting closed, her breathing slowing. "Yes," Gabriel said, though he wasn't sure if it was true or just the kindest lie he'd ever told. "Yes, you'll see me there." Emma smiled, a real smile, radiant despite her failing body. "Tell Grandma I'm coming. Tell her I wasn't scared at the end. Tell her." Her eyes closed, the monitors flatlined. Maria rushed in, calling for the crash cart, for doctors, for someone to do something. But Gabriel knew it was done. Emma had heard what she needed to hear. The thread of faith hadn't broken. It had held. And as the hospital room filled with urgent, frantic activity, Gabriel felt himself lifted, pulled, called back to wherever angels go when their missions end. The last thing he saw was Emma's face, peaceful now, wearing that smile like armor against the dark. Then he was standing in a place beyond places, in the presence of light so intense that it made his time on Earth feel like a shadow's memory. The voice spoke, and galaxies trembled. "Well done, Gabriel." "Did she make it?" Gabriel asked, his voice small in that infinite space. "Did I save her?" "She died at midnight, exactly as prophesied," God said. "But she died in faith, not despair. And faith is the bridge between mortality and eternity." "Yes, Gabriel, you saved her. Not from death, that was always coming, but from dying alone, afraid, and doubting whether love was real." Before we continue, we just want to say thank you for staying up till this time. Please stay till the end. There's a surprise package for you. Thank you. Gabriel felt tears on his face that had never been designed to cry. "I forgot everything. I failed." "You forgot nothing that mattered," God interrupted gently. "You forgot the decorative knowledge, the cosmetic memory, but you remembered what love feels like. And that's the only thing Emma needed you to remember." Before Gabriel could respond, the scene shifted. He was in heaven now, in the place where the redeemed gather. And there, standing in a garden where flowers bloomed in colors Earth had never seen, was Emma Martinez. Whole, healthy, radiant. And beside her, holding her hand and smiling through tears of joy, was her grandmother Catherine. Emma looked up and saw Gabriel. Her face split into that smile, the same one she'd worn as she died. She waved, and Gabriel waved back, his heart full of something too big for words. "Can I go talk to her?" Gabriel asked. "Soon," God said. "First, there's another prayer waiting. Another child. Another midnight deadline. Another chance to remember what matters." Gabriel understood. This was what he did. This was what angels did. They fell. They forgot. They stumbled through darkness and pain and confusion. And they remembered just in time to remind someone else that they weren't alone. "I'm ready," Gabriel said. And he fell toward Earth again, carrying nothing but a name and a deadline and the absolute certainty that love was real, that heaven was waiting, and that even in the darkest moments, someone was always reaching back. Merry Christmas, everyone watching from around the world. Whether you're in South Africa or Canada, Australia or Mexico, Germany or Jamaica, Merry Christmas. Before we close this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like Gabriel? Lost, confused, try to remember why you're here and what you're meant to do? Drop a comment below and share your story. You never know who needs to hear that they're not alone. Hit that like button if this story touched your heart. Subscribe if you want more faith-filled stories that remind you God never forgets you, even when you forget yourself. And share this video with someone who needs a reminder that angels fall just so broken people can be lifted up. From all of us here, Merry Christmas, and may you always remember what love feels like. Before we go to the second story, please subscribe to our channel, like our videos, and comment. Your support means a lot to us. Thank you. Now let's dive in. The first tray of cookies slammed onto the long folding table so hard that powdered sugar burst into the air like smoke from a cannon. People gasped. Someone laughed. Someone else coughed. That was how the Christmas cookie bake-off officially began. Flour was already on the floor. Music was playing too loud, and Pastor Bethel was raising his hands, trying to restore order while smiling like a man who knew control had already been lost. The fellowship hall of Grace Haven Church in Texas buzzed with excitement, voices overlapping, ovens humming, and children darting between tables like sugar-fueled fireworks. Before the chaos could settle, Pastor Bethel leaned into the microphone, chuckling, and said, "Welcome, everyone, and Merry Christmas." If you're joining us live, drop your country in the comments and tell us where you're watching from. And don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss moments like this. Mrs. Loretta Mayfield clapped her hands sharply, reclaiming attention with the authority of a woman who had run church events longer than most people had been alive. She wore a red apron that red-baked with prayer and held a clipboard like a sacred text. "All right, bakers," she said, eyes scanning the room. "This is not just any competition. This is the Christmas cookie bake-off. Excellence matters." Across the room, Precious Samuel straightened her posture and nudged her husband, Mark Samuel, who was nervously rereading a recipe card like it might change if he looked away. I told you we should have practiced, she whispered. Mark sighed. We did practice. The oven just doesn't like me. Nearby, children crowded around a low table, giggling and arguing over sprinkles, unaware that history was about to be made in the worst possible way. Victor Johnson stood on his tiptoes to see over the mixing bowl, his face serious with concentration. He was 9, determined, and absolutely confident he knew what he was doing. Sugar goes in now, he announced. Another child hesitated. That looks like salt. Victor squinted. Nah, sugar and salt are cousins. He dumped it in proudly and stirred with enthusiasm. At the adult tables, Precious piped frosting into neat designs, her jaw set in competitive focus. We are not losing to burnt edges this year, she muttered. Mark nodded, accidentally knocking over a measuring cup. Butter slid across the table. Somewhere, an oven timer screamed. Laughter erupted. Pastor Bethel rubbed his temples and smiled anyway. As the bake-off progressed, things only escalated. Flour-coated shoes. Someone's mixer sprayed batter onto the wall. A tray emerged blackened beyond recognition, followed by groans and applause. Mrs. Mayfield sniffed a cookie suspiciously and frowned. Too soft, she declared. Precious overheard and whispered to Mark. She's already judging. Mark tried to joke. At least ours look like cookies. Precious shot him a look. The kids' table erupted in cheers as Victor held up a misshapen star cookie like a trophy. Pastor Bethel stepped back to the microphone. Friends watching online, if you're enjoying this already, hit that like button. Trust me, it gets better. The camera panned across the room, capturing smiles, messes, and a Christmas spirit teetering between joy and competition. Then came the tasting. Mrs. Mayfield assembled the judges, her clipboard poised. The first few cookies earned polite nods. Then someone handed her one from the kids' table. She bit down. Her smile froze. Her eyes widened. She chewed slowly, painfully. Interesting, she said carefully. Another judge took a bite and coughed. Laughter rippled through the room. Victor's face fell. Is it bad? He asked. Pastor Bethel crouched beside him. Let's just say it's memorable. Precious laughed despite herself. That's one strong cookie. Victor frowned, then shrugged. Jesus still loves it. The words landed softly, unnoticed for now, as Mrs. Mayfield cleared her throat and moved on. The competition grew tense. Precious watched other tables closely, her smile tightening. Mark wiped his hands on his apron. This is supposed to be fun, he whispered. Precious replied, winning is fun. Across the hall, Pastor Bethel's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and stepped away. The music continued, laughter rising and falling, unaware that something outside this room was about to shift everything. Pastor Bethel answered quietly, his expression changing as he listened. He looked back at the hall, at the tables full of imperfect cookies, and exhaled slowly. He returned to the microphone, but didn't speak yet. He watched Victor laughing again, flour on his nose, and Mrs. Mayfield polishing her glasses. The moment stretched, unseen but heavy. Pastor Bethel finally spoke, his voice gentler now. Everyone, just hold on 1 second. The room quieted. If you're watching live, stay with us. This is where the story turns. He paused, eyes scanning faces. The ovens hummed. Cookies cooled. Somewhere between pride and laughter, something holy waited to be revealed. Pastor Bethel took a breath and raised his hand slightly, not like a man demanding silence, but like one asking for grace. I just got a call, he said. The Hope Shelter downtown ran out of food tonight. The cold came early, more people showed up than expected, and they don't have enough to serve everyone. A murmur swept through the hall. Smiles faded. Mrs. Mayfield's pen stopped mid-check mark. Precious crossed her arms slowly. Mark looked at the tables piled with cookies. Victor tilted his head. Like, no food at all? He asked. Pastor Bethel nodded. They'll do what they can, but it won't be enough. The room fell quiet in a way no competition ever could force. Someone near the back whispered, but these cookies, another voice followed, they're not exactly shelter quality. Mrs. Mayfield cleared her throat. We worked hard on this, she said, not unkindly but firmly. There are standards. Precious nodded instinctively. We can't just give half-burnt cookies away. Mark hesitated. But there's still food. The tension thickened. Pastor Bethel didn't rush them. He let the silence sit, like dough waiting to rise. I'm not telling anyone what to do, he said. I just wanted you to know. He stepped back, leaving the decision hanging between pride and compassion. Victor climbed onto a chair so he could see everyone. Can I say something? He asked. Mrs. Mayfield started to object, then stopped. Go on, Pastor Bethel said. Victor swallowed. Jesus was born in a barn. That wasn't perfect, but people were still happy he came. A few people laughed softly. Victor continued, encouraged. And my cookie tastes bad, he added honestly, but if someone's hungry, maybe bad is better than nothing. Laughter broke the tension, followed by something deeper. Precious felt her throat tighten. She looked at her perfectly frosted cookies and imagined someone cold, waiting. Mark squeezed her hand. He's right, he whispered. Mrs. Mayfield removed her glasses and rubbed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice wavered. I've been running church events for 30 years, she said. I wanted tonight to be perfect. She looked at the cookies, then at Victor. But Christmas wasn't perfect. It was holy. She set her clipboard down on the table. The sound echoed louder than expected. No judging, she said. We give everything. A beat passed, then applause erupted. Not the polite kind, but the relieved kind. Pastor Bethel smiled, eyes shining. If you're watching right now, he said to the camera, this is the moment worth sharing. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Love looks the same in every country. The hall burst back into motion, but this time it was different. People grabbed boxes, wrapping paper, anything they could find. Cookies were packed without sorting, without shame. Burnt ones, salty ones, beautiful ones. Victor proudly placed his star cookies on top. They'll remember these, he said. Precious laughed through tears. They will. Mark carried boxes two at a time. Someone started humming a carol. The competition banner sagged slightly, unnoticed. Pastor Bethel helped tape boxes, his sleeves dusted with flour. Joy returned, lighter and truer than before. The drive to the shelter was quiet at first, then filled with nervous chatter. The church van rattled as boxes shifted. Victor pressed his face to the window. Do you think they'll really like them? He asked. Precious answered gently. I think they'll like that someone cared. When they arrived, the shelter director's eyes widened at the sight of them. You brought all this? She asked. Pastor Bethel nodded. It's not perfect, he said. She smiled. Neither is hunger. Doors opened. Warm air rushed out. The smell of soup mixed with cookies. Inside, people lined up, surprised smiles breaking through tired faces. A man took a bite of a cookie and laughed. That's strong, he said, grinning. Victor beamed. A woman clasped Precious's hands. Thank you, she whispered. Precious couldn't speak, only nod. Mark blinked rapidly. Mrs. Mayfield watched quietly, hands folded, tears slipping freely now. Pastor Bethel stepped back, letting the moment belong to them. This was church, he thought, not the building. This. When they returned to the fellowship hall later that night, it looked different. Messier. Emptier. Better. The tables were bare. The trophy sat forgotten in a corner. Pastor Bethel gathered everyone briefly. Tonight, he said, we celebrated Christmas the way it started, by giving. He opened his Bible and read softly about a Savior born for all. If you're still with us on the live stream, he added with a smile, thank you for staying. Comment and amen if you believe love beats perfection every time. Victor tugged on Mrs. Mayfield's apron. Did I ruin the bake-off? He asked. She knelt and hugged him tightly. You saved it, she said. Precious laughed. Next year, she said loudly. No judging. Cheers followed. Mark raised an imaginary cookie. To the worst cookies ever, he toasted. Laughter filled the hall again, warmer than before. Outside, Christmas lights glowed against the Texas night, and inside, hearts were full. The ride back from a shelter felt different from the ride there. Lighter, quieter, like everyone was afraid to break something sacred by talking too loudly. Victor hugged an empty cookie box on his lap, as if it were treasure. Precious stared out the window, replaying the smile she had seen, the way gratitude looked nothing like competition. Mark drove with one hand on the wheel and the other resting on the dashboard, shaking his head slowly. All that stress, he said softly, over cookies. Precious smiled without looking at him. I forgot what winning was supposed to feel like. When they returned to the church, the fellowship hall greeted them with silence. No music, no timers, just twinkling lights and flower footprints on the floor. Mrs. Mayfield walked in last, surveying the room she had wanted so perfect. She picked up the cookie-shaped trophy, turned it in her hands, then placed it gently into a cabinet. We won't need that, she said. Pastor Bethel nodded. Some victories don't need shelves. He glanced at the camera, still streaming quietly. If you're just joining us live, he said warmly, you missed a lot, but you didn't miss the message. Let us know where you're watching from. And if this story is touching you, share it. Someone else needs it tonight. People began cleaning together, laughing again as they swept flour and wiped tables. Someone found a lone cookie under a chair and held it up like evidence. Survivor, they shouted. Victor giggled. That one's probably salty, he warned. Laughter rolled through the hall. Mrs. Mayfield handed Victor a cloth. You're on cleanup duty, miracle maker, she teased. He puffed out his chest proudly. Precious watched them, her heart full in a way she hadn't planned for. This wasn't on her checklist, but it felt better than any ribbon. As they worked, conversation softened. Stories were shared. Someone talked about a Christmas long ago when they had nothing. Another spoke of a year they had plenty but felt empty. Pastor Bethel moved among them, listening more than speaking. He stopped beside Precious. Thank you, he said simply. She shook her head. I didn't do much. He smiled. You let go. That's never small. Mark overheard and nodded thoughtfully. The night wore on, but no one rushed to leave. Outside, the cold pressed against the windows, reminding them why the shelter call had mattered. Victor sat cross-legged on the floor, stacking cookie boxes into a tower. Next year, he said, we should bake for them first. Mrs. Mayfield paused, then smiled. Next year, she said, we bake only for them. The room hummed with agreement. Something permanent had shifted. Pastor Bethel eventually clapped his hands gently. Before we go, he said, let's pray. They formed a loose circle, hands dusty with flour, hearts tender. He prayed simply, thanking God for laughter, for lessons, for a Savior born without perfection but full of love. When he finished, no one said amen right away. They just stood there breathing it in. Then Victor whispered it, and everyone followed. The livestream camera still blinked red. Pastor Bethel glanced at it one last time. Morning came quickly. Christmas Eve. The church buzzed again, but differently. People arrived carrying boxes, not for judging but for giving. Mrs. Mayfield directed traffic with joy instead of tension. Precious baked alongside others, laughing when frosting smeared. Mark burned a batch and shrugged. They'll eat it, he said cheerfully. Victor supervised, proudly labeling boxes with hearts drawn in marker. Halfway through the morning, Pastor Bethel paused the activity. Friends, he said, if you're watching live right now, stay with us. This is the heart of the story. He looked around at the room, full but free. This all started with a competition. He smiled. Now it's a calling. The cookies went out again that afternoon, more than before. Word had spread. Laughter traveled with them. The story of the Christmas cookie bake-off that turned into a miracle would be remembered for years in Grace Haven Church. Not because of trophies or ribbons, but because one messy, imperfect night had shown everyone the true meaning of Christmas. Laughter, love, giving, and the heart of Jesus Christ shining through ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And somewhere, watching from around the world, families joined in the joy, leaving comments, hearts full, inspired to bake, laugh, and give in their own corners of the world. The livestream camera captured one last image. Victor, Precious, Mark, Mrs. Mayfield, and Pastor Bethel standing in front of the lit tree, arms around one another, smiling and waving goodnight. A reminder that even small, imperfect acts of love can become miracles when shared with faith.